The Velrath homeworld was a place of peace. Their green-blue oceans shimmered under twin suns, and their cities were built among towering trees and cascading waterfalls. The Velrath were a species known across the galaxy for their wisdom and diplomacy. For centuries, they had maintained friendly relations with countless alien races, always prioritizing peaceful negotiations over conflict. But now, everything was falling apart. The Xantor Legion, a race of fierce, war-hungry aliens, had invaded their world. The Xantor were unlike any species the Velrath had encountered. They were technologically superior, ruthless, and merciless in their pursuit of conquest. No matter how hard the Velrath tried to fight back, they were outmatched. The once proud civilization was now on the brink of destruction. With their cities under attack and their people fleeing into hiding, the Velrath leaders met in secret to discuss their options. The Xantor had proven to be unstoppable, and the Velrath knew they had no hope of defeating them alone. They had called on their allies, dozens of species they had helped over the years, but no one came. The call had gone out to every corner of the galaxy. For weeks, their signals had reached species from across the stars pleading for help, but no one answered. The galaxy that the Velrath had spent generations building relationships with had turned its back on them. The leaders gathered in a dimly lit chamber, the weight of their decision hanging in the air. "We have no allies left," said Rylath, the eldest of the council members. His voice was heavy with defeat. "The Xantor are too powerful for us. We have failed our people." The others were silent, their eyes filled with the same sorrow. The Velrath had once been a shining example of peace, but now their world was crumbling. And yet one voice spoke up, breaking the silence. "Perhaps there is one last hope," said Silra, a younger but highly respected counselor. Her green eyes glinted with determination. "We have never considered this before, but we must send a message to them, to the humans." The room fell into stunned silence. "Humans?" Rylath repeated, his voice skeptical. "But they are so young, untested. They are new to the stars, barely able to navigate the galaxy, let alone defend themselves from the might of the Xantor." "I know," Silra replied, her voice calm but firm. "But they are also resourceful, and they do not shy away from a challenge. The humans may be new to this galaxy, but they have faced challenges far greater than anything we have encountered. If there is any species that can rise up and fight for us, it is them." Another counselor, Terran, spoke. "But why would they help us? We've never had a real alliance with them. They have their own problems. Why would they risk their own safety to come to our aid?" Silra stood up, her resolve strengthening. "Because we are not just asking for help. We are offering them an opportunity to prove that humanity can stand alongside the greatest civilizations of the galaxy, to show that they are not just survivors, but protectors. If anyone can stop the Xantor, it is the humans, and they will help us. I believe it." The council members exchanged uncertain glances. They had no other choice. With the Velrath cities burning and their people scattered in hiding, they decided to send the message. The call for help would reach Earth, the homeworld of humanity. The message was simple but urgent. The Velrath are under attack. "We have no allies left. We need help. If there is anyone who can stop the Xantor, it is you, human race. Please help us." With a heavy heart, the Velrath sent the transmission into the vast expanse of space. Their hope now rested on a species they had never truly considered: humans. Back on Earth, Lieutenant Maya Jones stood in the control room of the Earth Space Fleet's command center. She had been through countless battles, defending humanity from the dangers that lurked in the galaxy. As the leader of one of Earth's most elite fleets, she had faced down alien invasions, hostile takeovers, and even treacherous betrayals. But nothing could have prepared her for the message that came through her console. "Incoming transmission, Lieutenant Jones," the officer at the console said, his voice shaky. Maya stepped forward, her dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, and her sharp eyes focused on the screen. The message was garbled at first. The signal, weak, but then it cleared. She could see the faces of the Velrath leaders, their eyes filled with desperation. "We are the Velrath," the leader Rylith began. "Our world is under attack by the Xantor Legion, and we have no allies. We have sent calls to our friends across the galaxy, but none have answered. You are our last hope. Please, help us." Maya's heart clenched. The Xantor. She had heard stories of their brutal conquests. The image of those ruthless warriors known for their savagery and superior technology sent a chill down her spine. But she also knew one thing. Humans did not back down from challenges. As the transmission continued, Maya's mind raced. The Velrath had never interacted much with humanity. They had always been distant, focused on their own peaceful ways. But now, when the galaxy had abandoned them, they were turning to humans for help. "Prepare the fleet," Maya said, her voice steady. "We're going to Velrath." Her officers nodded, recognizing the gravity of the situation. Maya's crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh recruits, were ready for the task ahead. They didn't know exactly what awaited them, but Maya had no doubt that humans could overcome anything, especially when it meant saving an entire species. The countdown began as Maya watched the stars outside the command center. "We will not let them fall," she whispered to herself. "We will show the galaxy that humanity is not to be underestimated." As the Earth fleet prepared to leave, Maya knew this was only the beginning. The Velrath's hope rested on her and her people. Humanity's response would change everything. This marks the first part of the story, setting the stage for the conflict, the desperation of the Velrath, and the human response to an impossible challenge. The narrative is crafted to be engaging, simple, and violation-free, focusing on humanity's role as a new and unexpected ally to the Velrath. Let me know if you'd like further modifications or additions. Lieutenant Maya Jones stood in front of the holographic display, her eyes focused on the glowing map of the galaxy. The Earth Space Fleet was preparing for an unprecedented mission, a mission to save the Velrath, a peaceful species that had been abandoned by their allies and now looked to humanity for help. Maya had never imagined she would be in this position. Humanity had always been new to the stars, far behind other galactic civilizations. But now her people were being asked to step up when no one else had answered the call. "Lieutenant, we're ready to depart," Commander Jarrett, her right-hand officer, said, breaking Maya's concentration. Maya nodded but didn't turn away from the map. Her thoughts were a storm of strategy and uncertainty. The Velrath had warned them of the Xantor, ruthless, technologically advanced, and aggressive. A part of her wondered if they were walking into a trap. But another part of her, the part that had always thrived in the heat of battle, knew that humanity could rise to any challenge. "Commander," she said finally, her voice steady, "set a course for the Velrath system. We leave in 10 minutes." As the crew scrambled to prepare for launch, Maya turned to the small group of officers gathered behind her. They were the best humanity had to offer. Veterans of the Earth Space Fleet, each one a seasoned soldier who had faced danger before, but nothing quite like this. This was a mission unlike any they had ever undertaken, saving an entire species from extinction. Humanity's first true test on the galactic stage. "Listen up," Maya continued, addressing the officers. "We're going into a hostile system and we don't know what we're walking into. The Xantor are dangerous, but we have something they don't: adaptability. We've faced worse odds and come out on top. We can't afford to hesitate, and we can't afford to fail. Our mission is to protect the Velrath, and we will do whatever it takes." The officers exchanged determined looks. They knew Maya well. When she spoke, they listened. They trusted her. And if she believed they could make a difference, they were ready to follow her. Minutes later, the massive ships of the Earth Space Fleet lifted off from the launch bay. They were sleek, powerful, and unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The fleet was made up of the most advanced ships humanity had developed, yet they were still a fraction of the size compared to the warships of the galactic empires. Maya knew they would be outgunned, but she also knew they would be ready. As they jumped into faster-than-light travel, the crew settled into their stations. Maya found herself alone in the command room, the hum of the engines, and the soft beeping of the consoles, the only sounds breaking the silence. Her mind wandered, thinking about the Velrath. They were a peaceful species not built for war. How could they survive against the Xantor without the help of someone like humanity? The more she thought about it, the more she realized how desperate the Velrath must have been to reach out to a species like hers. Maya's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden jolt as the fleet entered the Velrath system. She quickly stood and moved to the console, scanning the information that appeared on the screen. They were here. "Lieutenant, we're approaching the planet's orbit." Commander Jarrett's voice crackled over the comms, reading multiple enemy ships in the system. "It looks like the Xantor are already here in full force." Maya's heart sank. She had expected the Velrath to be struggling, but the scale of the invasion was far worse than she had imagined. The Xantor fleet was vast, with dozens of warships patrolling the Velrath system. It was clear that they were trying to cut off any possibility of reinforcements. "We'll need to strike quickly," Maya said, her voice firm. "Send the order to the fleet. We'll drop out of hyperspace at the edge of the system and engage at maximum speed. Keep the Velrath out of the line of fire, but make sure we hit them where it hurts. No mercy." As the fleet approached, Maya could see the Velrath planet below, its once beautiful surface now scarred by the Xantor's relentless attacks. The cities that had once thrived with culture and life were now little more than burning ruins. Maya clenched her fists. This was not just a battle for the Velrath, it was a battle for the future of the galaxy. If the Xantor were allowed to conquer another peaceful species, who would be next? The ships dropped out of hyperspace with a violent thud, the fleet instantly coming into view of the Xantor forces. The enemy ships loomed large in the blackness of space, their sleek designs reflecting the cold, heartless power they commanded. But the humans were ready. Maya watched as her officers initiated the first wave of attacks. "Prepare for battle," Maya called, her voice calm but commanding. "This is what we've trained for." The first strike hit the Xantor's rear flank, catching them off guard. It wasn't enough to destroy the ships, but it was enough to send a message. The humans were here and they weren't backing down. The Xantor retaliated with fury, sending missiles and laser blasts toward the fleet. The battle began in earnest. Maya's heart raced as the energy shields of her ship flared to life, blocking the incoming fire. The hum of the ship's weapons systems filled the air as her officers returned fire. She could feel the ship shudder under the impact, but it held firm. She could already see the enemy ships retreating, their advanced technology no match for the humans' ingenuity. As the battle raged on, Maya's mind never wavered from her mission. The Velrath had placed their hope in humanity, and she would not let them down. The humans fought fiercely, using tactics that the Xantor had never seen before. The humans' ability to adapt and think on their feet was a critical advantage. With every strike, the Xantor fleet weakened, their confidence beginning to crumble. Minutes later, the tide of the battle began to shift. The humans had gained the upper hand. The Xantor's flagship, the largest ship in the fleet, had been damaged, and their remaining forces were in disarray. Maya knew that the Velrath's survival was within reach. "Continue the assault," Maya ordered. "We finish this now." With each new wave of attacks, the Xantor began to retreat, their warships turning away from the battle. The humans had done the impossible. They had pushed back the Xantor Legion. As the last of the enemy ships fled into the void, Maya stood in the command room, her chest rising and falling with adrenaline. The Velrath had been saved, but the real battle was only just beginning. The Xantor would not forget this defeat, and Maya knew that humanity had just earned its place in the galaxy. This marks part 2 of the story, with humanity's first engagement in the Velrath system and their battle against the Xantor Legion. The narrative remains focused on the strategic elements of the battle while highlighting humanity's resilience and determination to protect the Velrath. Let me know if you'd like any changes or additions, Omini. The battle had ended, but the war was far from over. As the Earth fleet hovered in the Velrath system, Maya Jones stood at the command center, watching as the Velrath's once beautiful planet began to stabilize. The remaining enemy ships scattered, in retreat. The Xantor, despite their advanced technology and aggressive tactics, had been outwitted by the humans' unpredictability and ingenuity. The Velrath were safe, for now. But Maya knew that the victory was only temporary. "Lieutenant Jones, we've cleared the enemy fleet from orbit," Commander Jarrett reported. His voice was filled with relief, but there was an underlying tension. "But we have multiple Xantor warships still stationed near the planet's moon. We can't let them regroup." Maya nodded. She had already anticipated the next move. The Yao. Xantor were not ones to retreat without leaving behind a threat. "We'll need to stay vigilant," she said, turning to the screen displaying the Velrath's moon. "Send a squadron to patrol the moon's surface. No Xantor ships are getting away this time." Jarrett tapped a few keys on the console, and the fleet's patrol ships moved into position around the moon. Maya watched them silently, her thoughts racing. The battle was only the beginning. The Velrath, though saved for now, still had a long road to recovery. And the humans, having earned their first taste of galactic warfare, were now fully involved in this conflict. She couldn't afford to think of this as a victory just yet. The Xantor would be back, and when they returned, they would bring everything they had. In the meantime, Maya turned her attention to the Velrath representatives who had joined them in the command room. Their faces, though tired, were filled with gratitude. The leader, Ryleth, stepped forward, his green eyes bright with emotion. "You have saved us," Ryleth said, his voice thick with admiration. "We thought our world was lost, but you came when no one else did. You are the hope we have been waiting for." Maya gave a small nod, acknowledging the praise. But she didn't feel like a hero, not yet. The Velrath had been caught off guard, and though the Xantor had been repelled, they were still out there. The real test would come when the enemy regrouped and returned. "We've only just begun," Maya said, her tone firm. "This is only the first step. The Xantor will try to strike back. We need to prepare for what's next." Ryleth nodded. "We have already begun organizing our people, but we must not waste time. Our cities are in ruins, and our population is scattered. We need resources and shelter. Perhaps you could help us rebuild." Maya met Ryleth's gaze. She had already anticipated this request. The humans were not just here to fight. They were here to protect, to aid, and to help the Velrath recover. Humanity had made its mark in the galaxy. They had proven themselves in battle, but now was the time to show that they could be allies, steadfast, reliable, and generous. "I'll have our engineers assist in rebuilding your cities," Maya said, "and we'll send medical supplies and food. But we need to set up a defense plan. The Xantor are not going to give up. We must be ready for their next move." Rilathi agreed, and the Velrath leaders immediately began working with the humans to coordinate the reconstruction efforts. Meanwhile, Maya's officers worked tirelessly to monitor the remaining Xantor ships and make sure no surprises were lurking in the darkness of space. Days passed, and the Velrath world slowly began to recover. The human fleet continued to patrol the system, ensuring that the Xantor would not return unchallenged. The humans, with their advanced technology and expertise, helped to restore power to the cities and provided much-needed medical care to the injured. As the Velrath saw firsthand the extent of humanity's capabilities, their respect for the human race grew. But the Xantor did not remain idle. Maya knew that their retreat was not an act of mercy. It was only a temporary setback. The Velrath, though grateful, could not ignore the fact that they had been abandoned by their allies and the humans had come to their rescue. They were in Maya's debt, and Maya was determined to ensure that humanity's place in the galaxy would never be questioned again. One evening, as Maya stood on the bridge of her flagship overlooking the recovery efforts below, Jarrett approached her with a report. His face was grim. "Lieutenant, we've just received intel from our reconnaissance ships," he said. "The Xantor are preparing for a second wave. This time they're bringing in reinforcements. Warships larger and more powerful than anything we've faced." Maya's jaw tightened. The Xantor had been holding back. Now they were preparing to strike harder. She had expected this, but the urgency of the situation hit her with full force. If the Xantor were able to land on Velrath, if they regained A foothold on the planet, everything they had worked for would be lost. How long until they arrive? Maya asked, her voice cool, though her heart raced in her chest. Less than a day, Jarrett replied. They're coming in force and they're bringing everything they have. Maya took a deep breath, her mind racing through options. There was no time to waste. The Velrath were still rebuilding, and, though they had helped protect the planet, they were not prepared for a full-scale war. The humans were their last hope. Gather the fleet, Maya ordered. We're not waiting for them to land. We'll hit them before they can get to the surface. Prepare the fighters and bombers. We're going on the offensive. The command room buzzed with activity as Maya's orders were relayed across the fleet. The Xantor had underestimated humanity once, but they would not make that mistake again. Maya was ready to lead her fleet into the fray once more. This time they would not just defend the Velrath, they would strike back with everything they had. As the fleet prepared for battle, Maya stood tall, knowing that humanity's future in the galaxy was being decided in these moments. She was ready for whatever came next. The humans had already proven their strength. Now they would show the Xantor that no one, no matter how powerful, could conquer Earth's warriors. End of Part 3. This part of the story shows the human fleet's immediate action to protect the Velrath and the growing tension as the Xantor prepare to strike again. Maya's leadership is put to the test as she prepares her fleet for another battle, and humanity's role as a protector in the galaxy continues to grow. Let me know if you'd like to modify or expand any part of the story. Omini. The skies over Velrath were darkening once more, and the tense atmosphere in the command center was palpable. Maya Jones stood at the head of the table, staring at the latest intel projected in front of her. The Xantor were on the move. Their reinforcements had arrived and they were larger, more powerful and angrier than before. Maya could almost feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. We don't have much time, Maya said, her voice steady but sharp. The Xantor fleet is coming in fast. We're going to strike first. We can't wait for them to land and regroup. We'll hit them before they can get close to the planet. Commander Jarrett, standing beside her, nodded in agreement. We've got a small window. If we don't take out their lead ships, they'll overwhelm us with numbers. Maya turned to the map displayed before her, tracking the movements of the Xantor fleet. We need to split our forces. Jarrett, take a squadron of bombers and attack their flagship. If we can disable it, the rest of the fleet will be disorganized. I'll lead the rest of the fleet to intercept their reinforcements. We have to hit them hard and fast. Jarrett quickly assigned the necessary officers to their posts, his face filled with determination. Understood, Lieutenant. We'll make sure they don't see it coming. Maya's mind raced as she reviewed her strategy. The Xantor were a formidable enemy, but they had one weakness: their overconfidence. They believed their strength alone was enough to crush any opponent. The humans, however, had something the Xantor didn't: adaptability. Maya knew that if they could outsmart the Xantor, they could win this battle. Set the fleet in motion, Maya ordered. This is our fight. Let's make sure the galaxy remembers what humanity is capable of. The battle began with a sudden roar of engines as the Earth fleet moved into position. Maya watched as the sleek ships of her fleet, armed with advanced weapons and cutting-edge technology, engaged the Xantor forces. The Xantor's ships were larger, but the humans were faster, more agile. The Xantor hadn't expected the humans to be this aggressive, this prepared. Maya's ship, the Guardian, led the charge, cutting through the darkness of space with precision. Her officers worked like a well-oiled machine, coordinating the fleet's movements with a level of skill that came only from years of training and experience. Each command was executed flawlessly, every maneuver designed to keep the Xantor off balance. Maya could feel the tension in the air as the first wave of attacks hit the Xantor fleet. The energy shields of the human ships flared to life, absorbing the incoming fire from the enemy. Maya's hands gripped the armrests of her chair, her eyes glued to the tactical display. The Xantor were responding with full force, sending blasts of energy toward the human ships. But Maya's fleet was ready. Target their engines, Maya ordered. Disable their propulsion. We don't want them fleeing or reinforcing each other. The weapon systems hummed as they fired on the Xantor warships. The first enemy ship exploded in a flash of light, sending debris scattering in all directions. Maya felt a surge of adrenaline. The humans were winning, but the Xantor were not going to give up easily. "Squadron 3, fall back," a voice crackled over the comms. "They've got us surrounded." Maya's heart sank as she heard the distress in the officer's voice. The Xantor were beginning to regroup, using their sheer numbers to overwhelm the human fleet. She could see the pattern forming. The Xantor would strike hard and fast, trying to outlast the humans with their overwhelming force. "Hold your ground," Maya ordered, her voice unshaken. "We're not giving up this fight. All units, focus on their flagship. That's our priority." The Guardian shot forward, cutting through the Xantor lines. Maya's ship weaved in and out of fire, dodging laser blasts and enemy missiles. The other human ships followed, using their agility to strike at the heart of the Xantor fleet. Each hit weakened the Xantor forces, but they weren't retreating. Maya knew that this was going to be a long fight. Meanwhile, Commander Jarrett's squadron of bombers moved into position to attack the Xantor flagship. The human bombers, equipped with devastating torpedoes, locked onto their target and launched their payload. Explosions rocked the Xantor flagship as the bombs struck their engines and weapon systems. "We've hit their main power grid," one of Jarrett's officers reported. "They're vulnerable now." "Good work," Maya replied. "Finish them off." The Xantor flagship, once the pride of their fleet, now burned in space, its once powerful weapons flickering and sparking. The rest of the Xantor fleet began to scatter, disorganized and confused by the sudden assault. Maya could see the tide of the battle turning. Humanity had proven its worth. But just as the humans began to press their advantage, a new threat appeared. "Lieutenant, we've got new ships coming out of the shadows," one of the officers yelled. "It's a secondary fleet, more Xantor reinforcements." Maya's blood ran cold. The battle had taken a turn. The humans had taken down one Xantor fleet, but now they faced an even greater challenge. The secondary fleet was larger, more heavily armed. If the humans couldn't hold their ground, the Velrath would be lost. "Prepare for the worst," Maya said, her voice calm despite the rising panic in the command room. "Jarrett, we need more firepower. You're going to have to take the fight to them." Jarrett's squadron had already taken significant losses in their attack on the flagship, but he didn't hesitate. "We're ready, Lieutenant. We'll go down fighting." Maya turned back to her console, making quick calculations. There was no time to waste. The reinforcements would be upon them in minutes, and the humans were already stretched thin. But Maya had one last card to play. "Squadron 2, prepare a full frontal assault on their lead ship," she ordered. "We'll break their formation and take out their command ship. If we can kill the head, the body will follow." The human fighters dove toward the incoming Xantor ships, charging headfirst into the enemy's ranks. Laser blasts flew past Maya's ship as the battle raged. Around her, the Earth fleet fought with everything they had, determined to protect the Velrath and prove that humanity was not just a fledgling power in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. As Maya watched the battle unfold, she felt a sense of resolve solidifying within her. This was their fight. The Xantor had underestimated humanity's strength, and they would pay the price. They had come to the Velrath's aid, and they would finish what they had started. The humans had only just begun to show the galaxy what they were capable of. The battle in the Velrath system raged on. Maya Jones stood at the command center of her flagship, the Guardian, her hands firmly gripping the console. Her eyes were locked on the tactical display in front of her, tracking the movement of the Xantor reinforcements. Despite the initial victories, the humans were still struggling to push the invaders back. The Xantor fleet had regrouped, and they were now pushing harder, more determined to crush the human resistance. "We're taking heavy fire from their flanks," Commander Jarrett's voice came through the comms, strained but steady. "Our shields are holding, but for how long I can't say." Maya's heart raced as she saw the status reports coming in. Ships were taking hits. The bombers that had been so effective earlier were now being picked off one by one. The Xantor were relentless. They had the advantage of numbers and firepower, and no matter how fast or clever the humans were, it seemed as though they were being slowly overwhelmed. "We need to shift tactics," Maya said, her voice calm despite the mounting pressure. "We can't just keep playing defense. We need to take the fight to them hard and fast." The officers around her nodded in agreement. Maya quickly turned her attention to the display showing the remaining enemy fleet positions. There were still dozens of Xantor warships scattered across the system, but their command ship, the heart of their forces, was vulnerable. If they could take down the command ship, it would throw the entire Xantor fleet into disarray. Jarrett, I need you to lead a concentrated strike on the Xantor command ship. We're going to break their command structure. Everyone else, we hold the line and cover your retreat, Maya ordered, her tone unwavering. Understood, Jarrett replied. There was no hesitation in his voice. We're going in. The moment Jarrett's squadron broke off to target the Xantor flagship, the human fleet was on high alert. Maya's ship, the Guardian, moved into position to support the attack. It was a risky move, attacking the heart of the Xantor fleet when they were still outnumbered, but it was their only hope of turning the tide. Maya watched from the command center as the human ships closed in on the Xantor flagship. The Xantor responded with a barrage of laser fire, but the humans were faster. They weaved in and out of enemy fire, launching missiles and energy blasts at the vulnerable parts of the flagship's hull. The Xantor flagship was massive, its design sleek and imposing, but the humans had one advantage: unpredictability. As the human bombers closed in, the Xantor tried to regroup, but the humans anticipated their moves. The battle became a chaotic dance of laser fire, missile explosions, and energy shields. Despite their technological superiority, the Xantor were now in a race to protect their flagship from the humans' relentless assault. Maya's chest tightened as she watched the fleet's movements on the tactical display. She could feel the weight of the decision she had made. If Jarrett's squadron failed, the humans would lose their chance to stop the Xantor. If they succeeded, they might be able to turn the entire battle in their favor. Jarrett, what's your status? Maya asked through the comms, her voice sharp. We've made it to the command ship's outer ring, Jarrett responded. We're going to need a few more minutes to break through their defenses. Hold on tight. Maya's fingers tapped restlessly on the console. The Xantor flagship was a fortress, heavily armed and heavily shielded. But Maya trusted her team. She knew they had the skill to pull this off. Back in the heart of the battle, the humans pressed on. They could see the damage they were doing to the Xantor fleet. Enemy ships were now falling back, their formation breaking apart as more and more of their ships were destroyed. But the battle wasn't over. There were still dozens of Xantor ships remaining, and they were not giving up without a fight. Maya's fleet continued to defend against the remaining Xantor warships. Buying time for Jarrett's squadron. The Guardian launched another volley of missiles, hitting a Xantor cruiser square in its weapons array. The explosion was massive, sending debris scattering across the battlefield. Keep pushing them back, Maya commanded, her voice filled with determination. We're not done yet. As the minutes ticked by, Maya watched with bated breath as the final stage of the attack unfolded. Jarrett's squadron was getting closer to their target. The Xantor flagship, though still firing relentlessly, was starting to show signs of weakness. The shields flickered, the engines sputtered, and for the first time, Maya saw a glimmer of hope. We're in. Jarrett's voice cracked over the comms. Targeting their main reactor now, brace for impact. There was a brief pause, and then the entire fleet felt the shockwave. The Xantor flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion, sending a shock of energy through the surrounding space. The blast was so powerful that it sent several smaller Xantor ships spiraling off course, crashing into each other in a chaotic mess of fire and debris. Maya's heart skipped a beat as she saw the flagship break apart. The Xantor fleet, once so confident in their power, was now in complete disarray. The command ship had been the linchpin of their forces, and with it destroyed, their coordination collapsed. The remaining Xantor ships were no longer fighting as a unified force. They were scattered, confused, and vulnerable. Keep pushing. We've got them on the run, Maya shouted. This is our moment. The humans surged forward, taking advantage of the disarray. Xantor ships that had been formidable opponents moments before were now being picked off by the human fleet. The bombers returned to base, their mission complete. Jarrett's squadron had delivered the final blow to the Xantor command ship, and the rest of the fleet was now in retreat. We've won, Commander Jarrett said, his voice filled with relief. "The Xantor are fleeing. They're broken." Maya exhaled a deep breath, feeling the tension leave her body. The battle was over. The Velrath were safe. The Xantor had been defeated. But Maya knew that this victory, though significant, was just one chapter in a much larger story. The humans had proven their worth in the galaxy, but this was only the beginning. There would be other threats, other challenges, and humanity would need to be ready. As the human fleet regrouped, Maya stood at the helm of the Guardian, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, and there were many dangers lurking beyond the horizon. But Maya was no longer afraid. She knew humanity had earned its place among the stars. They had come to the Velrath's aid when no one else had, and they had won.